gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. Today's guest is a 400-meter world champion track and field sprinter, an NFL alumni, former law enforcement peace officer, a speaker, and a trainer. He is a jack of all trades. We are sitting down with the one and only Tyree Washington. What is happening, my friend?
Oh, it's great. I'm just happy to be on your podcast. I mean, I think it's always great to be able to share my story, and I believe stories change lives. So I look forward to all the questions that you're going to dish out, and I'm going to give you an answer for it.
Well, let's get these questions dished out, my friend. So you have accomplished a lot in your life, but you had very humble beginnings from what I've read about you. Can we go into your story, your childhood, and the things that you had to overcome early in life? I know that you dealt with really bad asthma. You had some rough upbringings. Can you just walk us through some of the adversities that you faced as a child?
Yeah, well, my mother, my grandmother raised me, and I mean, they did the best they could do, and like you just stated, I mean, I suffered from asthma as a child, and I still have it now, and it almost took my life. More than I would have liked it to. Tried to like it to, but I was in an environment where it was very gang infested, and I mean, it was drugs, prostitution. I mean, you had poverty, any you could possibly name that was just horrible. I was like in an environment, and I've lived in this place called Montgomery Village, and I will talk about this. I mean, this is in my book, and the title is called The Village, and there was so much trauma, there was so much tragedy, and for me, my only way out of it was sports, and I was blessed to be able to meet great coaches that introduced me to football and track, and they showed me, and they taught me about responsibility, about just respect, and just discipline, and I just took that and just ran with it, and so it really helped me out a great deal, just to not end up like most of my friends who passed away.
So you mentioned coaches, and I think Kevin and I have come to realize after, 265 episodes now,
Sure.
we're just studying the human condition. We're trying to understand what makes the difference in people's lives, and it mentors and coaches always jump off the page. So regarding a coach teaching you respect and responsibility, I guess, when were you in a dark place, and what coach in particular what did they teach you, and how did that really help you move forward and get out of some of those darker places?
Well, in the early 80s, I mean, I remember when cocaine was running rampant. I mean, there was a lot of crime, there was a lot of deaths, and I got involved in the gang scene, and I was like most kids that are in that environment. I mean, it's like the father's not in their lives, and so I pledged my allegiance to the Crips, and I never got jumped in, but I pledged as a young boy. I pledged my allegiance to them, and everything that they were doing, I wanted to do, but a lot of them were dropping like flies. They were just dying. And so when I started playing Pop Warner football for Riverside Junior Tackle Football League, there was Coach Rick Garza. There was Phil Julick. He just passed away just a couple months ago. And there was Gil Lake and Coach Bush. And all these coaches collectively, they really just, and also had a recreational leader, Mr. Ray. They just told me straight up, like, listen, you only have 4 options. All right. It's either if you continue to do what you're doing and being around these gangbangers, you're going to end up dead. You're going to end up in the street. You're going to end up in prison. And are you going to get strung out somewhere, and your life is going to be over with. And so for me, I literally just saw all these, all my so-called homeboys and all these people just dropping. And I'm like, I could be next. I mean, it's like you're playing Russian roulette. Like you put that bullet in the chamber when you're making these bad decisions. And sooner or later, when you pull in that trigger, it's going to hit you. And I had that in my gut feeling, and just even as a young boy, I knew that I had to just turn away from my ways. And so I just literally just was attached to my coaches, and they broke me down, built me back up. And I remember telling my coaches that once I started to realize I was really good in football, that I want to be like Eric Dickerson and Walter Payton. And I was still fighting. My coaches, I remember he looked at me, he told me, he says, "You're never going to be like Walter Payton, Eric Dickerson." And I was a hardcore kid. I mean, I had thick skin, and I could take just about anything. And I remember I started bawling because I really wanted to play football, and I really wanted to use that opportunity to be able to do something in my life, to be able to pull my mother out of this gang infested environment.
So we had somebody on recently. When he was born, he had a 1 in a million genetic disorder, and his whole life he was told that he wasn't supposed to live past the age of 2, and now he is. He has a full-time job. He's killing it. He's an author. He's a speaker. How much
Awesome.
of your success, how much of your motivation, how much of your effort was because people told you that you couldn't do it? Because for somebody with asthma who turns into a world-class track and field runner, like, how did that happen?
Right.
I think it was 90% of it was what, someone was in, all the positive words, encouraging words they were instilling in me was a big part of me becoming successful, because I had doctors and they were teachers. I mean, they were all telling me that I wasn't going to amount to nothing. And I mean, and of course, I mean, I was doing things I should have been doing, but I was just looking at those teachers for them to, just to help me, because I need that positive role model. My mother, I mean, she's a phenomenal woman, but she just couldn't control me. I mean, and she couldn't control me, and I was like a wild animal, and so I went crazy. But but I think that I took everything that every coach, every teacher that was like encouraging me and just loving me and guiding me, giving me that tough love. I took all of that and I ran with it literally, and I was like, I'm gonna make something of my life, because it's like who you hang around with is who you're going to become. And if you're thinking negatively, you're going to attract it. I believe that law of attraction and, what you put out in the universe. And so even as a young boy, it's like I had that epiphany. I said, man, you got to get your life right, because if not, you're going to end up in a box. You're going to end up in a casket. Your mom is going to go to your wake. And your friends your so-called homeboys they can throw up all these gang sets while they're passing you in the casket. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to rise up like Lazarus. It's not going to happen. I'm gone, and they're going to go on with their life. And I didn't want that. I literally just had this premonition, this vision, like, hey, this is what your life could be, and you need to change it like right now.
What do you think the difference between the people that make it out of those circumstances, not necessarily the gangs, but obviously you had something within you that kept you going, and you became a world-class athlete, like best in the world at what you did. What do you think the difference between getting out of that environment and using your adversity as your advantage, and people who get kind of caught up in that, and then that becomes their identity? I could never do this because of my past, because of where I'm from, because of my family. Like, how did you leverage your adversity to be so successful?
Well, I think it all goes back to who you hang around with. Like, I mean, I put myself in an environment where I was surrounded by people who loved me unconditionally. They knew I was a knucklehead. They knew that I was. I mean, my thinking was just distorted. It was crazy, and they're like, hey, we got to reboot the system. We got to reboot Ty's system. We got to get him to think positively, and we have to encourage him. We have to motivate him. We have to show him that we love him. We love him. I remember, there's that we love him. That there was a time when I first started playing football, and I told the football coach, I said, man, you have to pay $100 to get your uniform. And I was like, I don't have $100. I'm poor. And he says, okay, here's 100 raffle tickets. And I remember me and my mother, we stood in front of Ralph's in the summer, and it was blazing hot, like over 90-some degrees. And we sold 100 raffle tickets so I can get my equipment. But, for me, it was like kind of like that self-worth. I didn't have any type of self-worth. I mean, I thought like, there was a point in time I thought, well, man, this is all around me. It's gangs, drugs, prostitution, people going in and out of jail. I mean, going to prison. I'm like, man, this could be my life. But then being around my coaches, they were showing me a different type of life and different type of environment that was peaceful and loving and caring. So I attached myself to that. But there's a lot of kids that grew up in the same environment that I was in, and it was like kind of the woe is me. They didn't really believe in hope. I believed in hope, and even though they may have good people they came in contact with, it's like they brushed them off. They didn't want to listen to them. And I was very open, and I was like a sponge. Like, I want to take it in because I was desperate. I'm like, I have to get out of this environment for myself and for my mother and my sisters, because if not, it's like we're all going to end up in tragedy. And I didn't want that.
You mentioned hope, and I study leadership regularly. I think the biggest bottleneck to my long-term success is poor leadership. So I'm always trying to hone that skill. And there's a quote I've come to live by, which is basically leaders, like good leaders, are dealers of hope. So
yes,
and that's obviously what made the difference for you. It sounds like great leaders in your life who you admired and who really cultivated greatness within you, and maybe they saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself and then helped to uncover that. What do you believe the definition of hope is? Because I know prior in the preamble, just for the listeners, like we asked what your intention was, and you said you want to help them hang on to hope. Everybody goes through stuff, but persevere through it. So what does hope mean to you?
Hope to me is like somebody that's gone through so much in their life, and they may have been down on their luck. They may have been beaten down. They're almost on the verge of near death, but they still rise up and they still keep pushing forward, despite what people are saying, despite what they're going through. To me, that's somebody that showcases hope. And like I love, like I read my Bible. Like I'm a Christian man. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus, man. And I read the book of Job. And when I read the book of Job, I have a keynote about this in a couple weeks. And when you look at Job, you look at his life, and good old Satan was just roaming the earth. It's like, man, he went to God and he asked him, he said, hey, is there anybody I can tempt? And he said, yeah. And he said, and God was like, hey, my servant Job is very faithful and righteous, and he will never turn his back on me.
Right.
And so Satan was like, he said, hey, well, let's see. He said, we'll see about that. So he basically, he killed all his kids. He took all his riches. He inflicted his body with sores. His own wife was like, why don't you just curse me, curse God and die? But he never did that. He persevered through all the adversity, all the challenges, and all the temptation. At the end, he was blessed more than he could ever imagine. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the same thing with, just us, just with our life, is that everybody goes through something in their life. I don't care if you live in the project, I don't care if you live in the Hamptons, wherever it may be. We're going through something, and we're all looking for hope. Like we're trying to read about it. We're listening to people that are talking about hope and how they persevered. And so it's like you have to attach yourself to people like that have gone through it, or they know about it, and they can be able to encourage you and motivate you that, hey, there's, like I said before, there's so many people that came before all of us that have gone through the same thing, that have persevered, and that have made it. And that right there is hope. That gives us that motivation, that fire inside, that drive, that I'm just going to keep pressing forward no matter what the hell or high water. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna get to my first finish line amongst many other finish lines.
Fired up over here.
You also mentioned respect and responsibility, and those were the things that the coaches helped to instill in you. What is your definition of responsibility? Because Kevin and I have our own definition. We think taking ownership for your own shortcomings is like the start of greatness. So like, what does responsibility mean to you, and what can you bring to the listeners regarding, the shifts you made early on?
I think it's accountability. It just makes sure I agree with the ownership is accountability for your actions, and that you don't go start on pointing fingers at everybody else about what it's like what you didn't do in your life. It's all about what you should have done. And because a lot of times, I as a youngster and even as an adult, I dropped the ball. It's like someone gives you an assignment to do, or my wife, I love her, and she's like, hey, you got to go drop the kids off, and I'm caught up in work, and I forget. I'm human, and that was, and then there's a backlash for it. There's a consequence. So it's owning up to it. It's owning up to something wrong, and just making sure that you do whatever you possibly can to honor your commitment to that person, and whoever else you're dealing with.
Tyree, this is going to be I'm going to try to make it a philosophical question. So again, I've talked about how you were the best in the world at many of the things that you did, but let's just talk in terms of track and field. When did you realize, like, I could be the best in the world at this? Was it when you were young? Was it when you were in your teen years? Like, when did you really lock in on, I'm going to go all in on this dream? Because I know you actually wanted to play football, right? You never really saw track and field in your future. So how did that actually play out? Because obviously, to become the best in the world at something, you have to be practicing it more than anything else. So what was that process like?
Well, first of all, I tell everybody I didn't want to run track, and I had no desire. I did it to stay in shape, like most football players. And a lot of people don't know that in high school, I was an all-state cornerback. I was heavily recruited all over the country. I could have went anywhere. I could have gone anywhere I wanted to go. And I chose to go. I signed a full ride scholarship at the University of Oregon. I had academic issues. They tried to Prop 48 me. I went down there. I got antsy with not playing because I wanted to play. And I left and rode into another school. And that it kind of caused the issue. But also, It's like I had my girlfriend, she got pregnant. So that was a huge issue. And I actually gave up my scholarship so I can take care of my girlfriend and my son. But what I didn't know is that in high school I was well, I mean, there was a coach that was recruiting me all through, scouting me all for all 4 years. And I was a state long jump champion. I used to love the long jump. And so when football didn't work out, I was at my local community college, Riverside, was playing football, and things weren't working out. So I quit the team. And so his name was Blackman Ehem. He approached me. He's from Nigeria, and he said, son, he said, things are not working out in football. He said, why don't you come across town to San Bernardino at San Bernardino Valley College and run track for me. He said, you're going to be a great quarter miler. I ran 46.3 in the 400 meters, screwing around, 46. Just having a ball with it, just
screwing around.
Screwing around.
Can you give the listeners perspective of just how fast that is?
So you imagine I'm sprinting in high school. Okay, I'm sprinting over 4 football fields in 46 seconds in high school, just having fun, happy-go-lucky, like it's a jog in the park.
To give the listeners perspective, I ran track in high school, and I could barely do less than a minute. So he's picturing all out the fastest person you've ever seen for 400 meters. Unreasonable is the only word.
It was crazy. But Blackman Ehem, he was a phenomenal coach, because from day one, maybe from my first practice, he told me, he said, you are a professional athlete in college. And I remember it's like it was yesterday. I looked at him like a deer in headlights. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this man is crazy. Like, I'm in JUCO. I'm not even a pro yet. And he said, even though you're not a professional athlete yet in track and field, he said, you're going to be one. And he said, give me less than a year. I'm going to make you great. And so I bought into everything he was saying. He said, you're going to think like a pro, train like one, and you're going to practice like one, eat like one, dress like one, everything. And within 9 months, I was the number 2 400 meter runner in the world. I went to nationals. I won that. I beat Michael Johnson. I went to the world championships and won a bronze. And that was my first year running track. But I knew I was fast when I ran 44 in junior college. And it was so easy. I felt like I ran literally 300 meters. And I remember when I hit the finish line, I was at Bakersfield City College, and it was jam-packed, thousands of people, and it got eerie quiet. And I was like, oh crap, what did I do now? And and so it was silent for a couple of seconds, and all of a sudden the announcer just went crazy, and he said, new national record, 44:52, the number two quarter mile, and I was the number 2, I had the second fastest time in the world behind Michael Johnson. And that right there just changed my entire life to this day, because it was like I was a no-name, and now I became like this. I had this name out there in the world, and everybody knew Tyree Washington. It's crazy.
What is that like? Okay, so let's talk about that. So your anonymity, I think I said that right. Anonymity?
No, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. Let's not. I won't try any harder than that. I hurt myself. So you lost your anonymity like overnight, where people suddenly knew you and had a vested interest in you beyond just you being a good person. What was that like, and what are the challenges associated with that? Because a lot of people think in their subconscious like they want to be famous, but I don't know if they know the downside. Can we talk about that a little?
Now, are we talking about the gold medals that I lost because of my relay? Or are we just talking about just as far as when you're at the top and then
right.
You're only good as your last race, and then you just drop back down to the bottom?
All of that stuff. We talked to someone, his name's Anthony Trucks. He got a Super Bowl ring with the Steelers, and it's interesting to hear his perspective on what it's like and the chip on your shoulder and the imposter syndrome and all that stuff. Can we go into just your experience about being a professional athlete in general? Yeah,
as a pro athlete, it's tough. I mean, your life first and foremost is under a microscope. So anything that you do, anything you say, it's magnified like 100 times. I mean, I watched Last Chance U. That's like one of my favorite shows. And these basically bounce back and Coach Buddy Stevens, and on the show, they were talking about how, professional athletes, even collegiate athletes as well, that, you have somebody that works in the bank, they do something wrong, but a professional athlete does something, and then the whole world knows about it.
Right.
And so there's a lot of pressure. So for me, when I was at the top of the world, and then all of a sudden I just dropped back down to it's like I accomplished great things, but now, like I said, you're only good as your last race, and nobody's really talking about you anymore. It's very humbling, and it plays in your psyche because you're wondering like, man, am I good enough to get back there? Because it's like when you're at the bottom, you're in desperation. You're doing anything you can to get to the top, but it's hard to stay. It's hard to stay at the top because even as I listen to Deontay Wilder, I mean, he's a phenomenal heavyweight champion, and he's a destroyer. And he talks about like how when he wasn't at the top, he wasn't heavyweight champion in the world. It's like he was hungry. He was trained at 5 o'clock training session. I mean, you're there at 4:30 in the morning. You're grinding. But once you get the prize, once you get those heavyweight titles, once you get those gold medals, once you're the fastest man in the world, you play in the NFL, you have all these accolades. And now it's like you're comfortable. You got millions of dollars. You have all this fame. It's like when that alarm clock goes off at 5 o'clock, you're like, man, do I really want to get up? And so now I'm like at 4:30, you're like, man, I'm a multi-millionaire, man. Like I have all these accomplishments.
I shouldn't have to get up at 5 a.m.
Yeah,
the ego.
I don't have to do it.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I don't have to. So it's not about. I think that's it's like a tug of war because it's like you've already proved to yourself you can make it, but then the rest of the world, it's like they always want more and more and more. They want to see more of you, and they want to see you do more phenomenal things, and so it's always like you're always trying to up the ante. And for me, my coach he would always tell me, he says, hey, when you win that gold medal, and it's like he says it's great, and he says enjoy it, but I want you to put it away. I don't want you to get so comfortable with it that you forget where you come from. You forget that at one point that you were at the bottom trying to work your way to the top. And I think like to me one of the secrets is that when you are at the top is that you have to pretend that you're a nobody, that you're still at the bottom,
right?
And you're trying to get up there. I mean, that's to me is one of the secrets to just trying to stay on top. Now, the inevitable can happen is that you can do all the right things, and that's happened to me, and you get sick or you get injured. Right. And it's like, and you're still like, the world's like, okay, well, you're not there. They're on to the next. That's how it is. I mean, I have this term that it's called conveyor belt athlete. And what that means is that, I mean, it's like there was athletes that were behind me. They were ready to take my spot, and they're always coming. They're always coming. So it's like like I said before, you're only good as your last race, and you have to literally train as if your last, practice as if it's your last practice, and compete as your last competition. And you got to have that fire and that hunger inside because once your time is up and they turn off the lights in the stadium, and they're not chanting your name anymore, and those butterflies are gone, it's over with. It's a wrap. It's done.
Tyree, did you ever? So we're talking about Deontay Wilder boxing, right? I remember Mike Tyson at his prime. He thought he was
Mike.
big fan of Mike. He will be on the show one day. If you know him, feel free to send him our way.
Right, I sure will.
he got so confident, and everybody thought he was the best ever. He could not be beat. That he started to take his success and his championship for granted. Did you ever? I know that it seems like you understood that you couldn't do that, but did you ever have those times where it was like, you know what? I'm Tyree Washington. Like, I'm not gonna show up to practice today. Did you ever have one of those times where you got really humbled by your success and not putting in the effort?
No, I didn't want to take that L, man. I didn't want to just give the L up. I mean, I was going to fight to the finish to take that loss. And so I would always play the pretend game. The pretend game for me was that even when I was practicing with my coach, or if it was not with my coach, that I always pretended my coach was there. And I always pretended, and I knew like Michael Johnson, obviously he was the man. I mean, and it's like I'm like he's Goliath and I'm David. I'm like I gotta break him down. Yeah. And so I always worked as hard as I possibly could, and I put in the work. It was on the track, in the weight room, just for my nutrition. I did everything I possibly can to put myself in a position to be successful because I don't like to lose. I don't like. I'm telling you, I was a sore loser. And I mean, for me, it's like when I did lose, I had to go back to the drawing board. Like, what did I do wrong? And my coach always tell me, like, even if I won a gold medal, like, and I had a great performance, I'm going back to the drawing board, go back to that whiteboard. I'm like, okay, what did I do wrong? I'm like, I was highly critical of myself, very, very critical. And my coaches would have to get on me and tell me, hey, Ty, it's okay, don't worry. I mean, it's all right. You'll get better next time. But I was a perfectionist, and I wanted things to be done right. I mean, you look at guys like Floyd Mayweather. He knows his craft. I mean, and he's trying to perfect his craft. And I don't believe in perfection. But it's like that's the terminology that I was thinking back then, or I was always telling myself and using. But it's like I just wanted to be better in everything that I wanted, that everything that I was doing, so I could be the best in the world.
Tyrese, we always tell people that we pull back the curtain on what it really takes to be the best in the world, whether it's business, an author, a speaker, a coach, an athlete, in your relationship. What were your daily habits at the peak of your career? Like, what did a day in the life of Tyree look like? What were you doing in the morning? What were you doing for exercise? What was your nutrition, stretches, all of that stuff? Like, what was a day in the life of you?
Yeah, I would wake up in the morning and I would have a big breakfast, and my teammates would be like, they would call me a fatty, because I mean I had a full course meal, man, and one of my teammates was from Jamaica, Christopher Williams, and he would drink some coffee and have some toast, and I would have like sausage, eggs, cranberry juice, bananas, yogurt. I'm having all that because I'm a quarter miler, man. I need fuel. I mean, I would dog him out and say, man, you're a 100-meter sprinter, man. You guys don't need nothing. You guys can blow away like the wind, and and so and I was a power 400-meter runner, so I was very very muscular, and and so I love to eat. But after my breakfast, I would have my breakfast. I would get dressed. I would go to the track. And before I even start my practice, I would just walk the track. I would just visualize myself just doing my workout. If I had repeat 500 meters, I would just visualize every single 100 meters, and making sure I'm telling myself, I'm coaching myself in my head. Make sure your shoulders down. Make sure you're relaxed. Coach would tell me, hey, here's your pace. If it was 14-second pace, I got to hit 14-second pace for each 100 meters. And your warm up was extra. So after I walk my lap, I would do my warm up, and that consisted of me doing 100-meter sprints. I would sprint the straightaways, jog the turns, and after I did that, I would do my drills, and I would get into my workout. And afterwards, we would have a cool down. That jog a couple laps. My coach would give me a little pep talk. I'm off to the gym, and off to the gym, hitting my weight while my weight room workout. I would break up my body parts. I would either have a chest and biceps, shoulders and back, do legs. I got plyometrics, and then I would go. Then I'm seeing my masseuse. And if I have any issues, I'll get physical therapy, get some ultrasound, get some stim, and then I'm back at home taking an ice bath, and then I'm watching film, and then I'm with my family. But having asthma, and there's times my wife was like, my ex would tell me, my ex-wife would say, she's like, you're crazy, because I would have an asthma attack, like right during practice. I would finish, I would go to the hospital. The doctors would tell me, they said, you need to back off for about a week. I would pretty much tell them, like, you know what, you're crazy. Like, in my mind, I'm kind of like, it's not going to happen. And the next day I'll be back in practice. I mean, I didn't slow down. I always had my foot on the gas pedal. And there was times I was driving 100 miles to be with one of my coaches, Jim Bush, the legendary the Hall of Famer Jim Bush, quarter mile coach at UCLA, USC. And it would be pouring rain, and the track would be soaked. And he would ask me, he says, Ty, and for him to even ask me this, he said, do you want to train today? And I said, Coach, Michael's training. I said, all the the top quarter milers in the world are training. I said, I'm training. And so I would be out there soaking wet, and I would run my repeat 500s. And when I finished, like, I felt great inside. I felt empowered. I felt like, hey, man, if I can still I can run 500 meters, repeat 500 meters in the pouring rain and it's cold when the weather is ideal. I was like, I'm just going to unload on people. And that was like my mentality. And I try to tell like these young athletes that now is that you can't put limits on what you want to do in life, because especially if you're trying to be a professional athlete, you have to look at your competitors. They're not holding back. They don't care about you.
Tyree, I listen to a speech frequently by Matthew McConaughey at Houston Commencement, and he says the following phrase. He says, take the roof off the man-made roof we put above ourselves and always play like an underdog. What I think is interesting about you is that you're very mastery-driven. You've said many times that you wanted to be the best in the world. What I find fascinating, so I'm mastery-driven too. Like, back when I was a pro gamer, everything I've ever done, I go all in. I always say I dial everything up to 11, so I have to choose wisely, by the way. Very wisely must choose. Because I've dialed some less than ideal things up to 11. But the point is, why don't more people be like that? I have this one story I tell at my speeches where I have a close friend of mine, his name's Keith, and basically we call him Kiki. He used to say, Alan, you don't got to be the best at everything. And I said, no, Kiki, you don't have to be the best at everything. What I just like being good at stuff, and I know you have that too. It takes one to know one. Why do you think most people don't have that? Because I think if you want to be really great at something, the byproduct of that is growth and contribution. Like if you want to be the best speaker in the world, you're going to change people's lives more effectively by being mastery driven. Why do you think most people aren't like that?
Well, I think a lot of people just are they're not disciplined enough to want to wake up like at 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and go work out. And they like it's like what Matthew said. It's like you take that roof off. They put themselves in a box, and their mentality is that it's too hard, it's impossible. Like for me, a lot of people in my life have told me that I wasn't going to accomplish anything. That it wasn't that I can never. The doctors told my mother that I was going to never be able to be involved in athletics, and I always wanted to prove people wrong. And for me, it was like it was proving them wrong, but also I wanted to do something extraordinary while I was proving them wrong. And 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 people great. You look at every great athlete out there in the world, the Tom Brady's, the Drew Breeses, and the Usain Bolts, and I mean the list goes on. And you like yourself, and is that you were doing things that most people were dreaming about doing. And I think a lot of them, they're not dreamers. They don't dream that, hey man, one day I could be the best in the world. One day I could be this. I could be this a New York best-selling author. That I can be this top gamer, or I could be a chief of police or whatever, this top district attorney. They don't dream. They don't see themselves. Like I literally saw myself being the best in the world.
Right.
And I was like, and I put myself around those people. When I became like that top athlete in the world, I would always look back and I would always think all the athletes that were my sparring partners, the ones that came in at a certain point where I was just starting and they were better than me and I caught up to them and I passed them, but they all helped me collectively to be who I am.
Right.
And I think a lot of times people just don't want to invest in that. It's like they just want to invest in something that's just it's safe and it's comfortable. And that's not. They don't want to invest in that. Hey, that's impossible. That's impossible.
Tyree,
Mike Tyson
go
did
ahead.
the impossible. Mike Tyson did the impossible when he knocked out Burbick in the 80s. I mean, just knocked him out. I mean, he's a teenager. I mean, you think about that. I'm a big Mike Tyson fan, and I had all his fights, and I'm like, this dude knocked out Burbick. I mean, at 19 years old, he was a teenager, man. I mean. But he didn't believe in the impossible. He made it possible.
Impossible is not a fact; it's an opinion. Everything's impossible until someone does it. Kevin wants to ask a question before I interrupt again.
So we talked a little bit. So you brought this up earlier, but at one point in your career, after you had won a bunch of medals, everybody on your team, or maybe not everybody on your team, but I know some people on your team tested positive for steroids, and that caused a lot of problems for you, even though you didn't take part in that behavior. Can you walk us through what happens when all of your successes, quote unquote, or the results of your successes get taken away, and how that made you feel because you didn't do anything to really deserve that?
Yeah, well, I originally won 8 world titles and I had a world record because I was on a relay team, and 2 of my teammates were doping. One of them committed suicide, which is Antonio Pettigrew. The other one, Jerome Young, he got banned for life. They stripped us of those 4. They stripped me of 4 world championship gold medals and my world record. I'm the only athlete in history that has been hit that hard as far as losing that many gold medals, and my world record.
Wow.
And for me, it was very hurtful because I believe that if you're on the team of one fall, we all fall. Right. I have friends from Great Britain, Jamaica, all over the world. They got upgraded to the gold medal, and I was happy for them. I was extremely happy for them. Those are still my brothers, but it just hurt me because it was betrayal. It's like the crazy thing about this, and I was just talking to my agent yesterday about this. Most of these my 2 teammates that they were doping, they didn't even need drugs. They were phenomenal athletes. They could have done very well in their career, but I think people get greedy. It's like they want more. But for me, it's like I never had that desire to want to dope and to want to cheat. If I got my behind kicked, then you know what? So be it. I need to go back to the drawing board. I just need to work harder. And so the aftermath of losing all those medals is that it affected my appearance fee. It affected my sponsorship. It affected that, people, even though I wasn't using drugs, it's still like it gives the sport a black eye, gives you that black eye because they're wondering, okay, was Tyree Washington doping? All of that came into play. And so what I decided to do back then, I started creating Killeroid, and I started educating athletes about performance enhancing drugs, about making the right choices. Because when an athlete goes out there and dopes, it just doesn't affect them. It affects their teammates, it affects their fans, it affects the federation, and so many people. It's a ripple effect, and that's what hurt me the most is that Jerome Young was a really good friend of mine. He was like my best friend. And I just felt like he didn't need that garbage. He didn't need that stuff.
Powerful. That was vulnerable. I appreciate you going there. That hits home for me, too, because one of my goals is to be the greatest natural aesthetic men's physique fitness athlete on the planet. And it's an industry that definitely has a lot of drugs. And staying true to your own true north and in integrity with yourself, I think, is everything. I think it's also interesting. Your undying self-belief is so powerful. And it's like those other people who maybe needed or felt like they needed drugs to get ahead and you didn't feel that way, do you think on some level that was because you believed in your own natural abilities, like you believed in yourself?
I believed in hard work, like just old fashioned hard work. I mean, and I love the Rocky movies. I mean, and people may say, obviously it's fictional, but in a lot of ways it's true, because if you go out there and you put the work in and you don't fear anybody. I never got caught up in roster hype, even playing football. You see guys 6'5", 260, or a wide receiver 6'2", 250. I mean, for me is that I believe everybody was on my playing field. And if I put the work in, and I had the mentality too, I should say, is that I wanted to work harder than anybody in the world.
Right.
And so if you outdid me, then hey, you deserve whatever you're gonna,
right.
you're
You
gonna
outworked
get.
me. Yep.
Yeah, you outworked me. And so, but I just think a lot of people, they just, they want shortcuts, and they want that, it's that self-entitlement. They want to hand it to them. But when I beat all these athletes that were on drugs, mentally, I destroyed them because they were only good as the drugs they were taking. And I talk about this in my book. I have a chapter in my book entitled "The Cost of Being Clean," and it's very deep. And so it's just like, and athletes that are doping up, they go, and if they don't get caught right away, they go and write books, they go on TV shows, they start making all this money. But then when they do get caught, it's like they want the money back, but they don't. It's like most of the time these organizations, they're never going to get the money back. Right. But the athlete that was underneath them, I can never go back to 2003 and stand on the podium again. I can. For me, I'm still trying to fight the International Federation for the money that's owed to me. And it's a mess. And I think that athletes need to think twice, because ultimately you only have one life. And so forget about putting an asterisk by your name. You may take something at the wrong time and you may lose your life, and that's it. And there's no do-overs. There's no return, because this is not life is not a video game.
There's something that there's something I've noticed about people who aspire to be, quote unquote, the greatest in the world. It's not about, even if you never got there, the journey the work ethic you'd have to put in is what matters, and the character you develop. But here's the thing. So I can tell that you have a lot of heroes. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. The reason why I know that is I do too. I have 8 in particular. I think we're all a warning and an example for something. And I've actually gotten so hyper-conscious that I've written out the warnings and examples. And my favorite heroes have become the ones that don't have a warning, or at least I can't find one yet, even though I'm sure they do. So for you, who are your heroes? Because your heroes are probably the best in the world at what they do. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So where did that come from? And how long have you had that? Because I think people are missing that, Tyree. And if they had that true north, they would want to be the best in the world at something. If you look up to someone who's the best at what they do, it's going to change your life. Go ahead.
I just need that, I think just people need to attach themselves to other individuals that are doing their best to become better every day. They're whatever. They could be a teacher, they could be a garbage man, they could be a pastor, they could be whoever. They're trying to be better in their life. And for me, everybody that I attached myself to, they weren't trying to be perfect, because they're not perfect, because we fall every single day. And they were just real. They were authentic. They were just loving and caring, and they wanted to, like, even though, like I said, earlier I was talking about when I was doing bad, they still wanted to just lift me up. And they're not going to just turn their back, on you. It's like you got to attach yourself to those type of people that are going to push you every single day in everything you want to do to help you to be able to achieve your goal in life. And it just, I don't, people sometimes, I go to these I talk to these kids, disadvantaged kids, and they say, I don't have that. I said, no, there's at least one. There's at least one person that you're going to cross paths with. That's a really good person that's going to reach out to you. And you can't deny that person, because I truly believe in prayer. And I believe when you pray, you say, like, you're asking God or your higher being, whoever it may be. It's like, hey, could you help me out? Could you send me somebody that's going to help me? And those people will come in different forms. They can come in different races. They come in different, different sizes, different religions. It may be whoever. You never know who's going to come in your path, and that can give you, they give you some words of encouragement, or they may help you out one way or another. That's going to lift you up and help you to get to where you want to be. So I've always embraced that. My wife tells me I talk too much, and I talk to people. So I spent 10 years overseas, and I've been all over the place and all through the UK. And I would just talk to random people because I want to know their thought process. I want to know their psyche, and I respect their culture. Like wherever country that I travel to, I respect their culture, and I didn't try to press my ways on them, because I wanted to know about their way of life, and that made them feel really good. And I think a lot of times it's just getting to know people. And I mean, I could talk so much about dating and all kinds of crap, but yeah.
Tyree, let's dig into your psyche. What are some of your principles, like daily principles that you live by? Alan and I always talk about fail forward, right? We always say your character matters more than your results. Like, what are some of your not success fundamentals, but the fundamentals that you believe in and day out that kind of shape the man that you are today?
Well, I believe in respect. I believe that it's like you want to treat people how you want to be treated. I believe in like loving people unconditionally, and until proven, even if they do something wrong, it's like you still can love people, to me, from afar. And I do believe that it's like I want to surround myself around other individuals that are doing positive things. And I know there's a lot of times there's people that they're not making great choices, because a lot of times they're misinformed.
Yep.
So I try to just speak my piece to them and give them an encouragement. And if they want to buy into it, great. If not, I just keep on pushing. But also too is that, I mean, I think prayer is a big part of my life, and so I think it's not really so much a principle, but it's just like prayer to me is like is that guidance, and it gives me that revelation, it gives me that discernment about what I should do in my life, who I should hang around with, who I should not hang around with, and how I should think and how I should not think. And so I don't try to, like I meant to talk about this earlier about being perfect. I think we live in that era of social media where everybody's trying to take the right picture. Everybody is trying to say the right things, and they're trying to write the right things. But people kind of they miss the boat by just being authentic, being who they are. And if somebody can't love you for who they are, then they don't really love you. And because I literally looked at YouTube one day and I was like, no matter what you say or no matter what you do, somebody's always going to disagree with you. And you guys know this.
Oh, yeah.
And if you look, you can feed a million homeless people, and you can give them a house, you give them clothes, right, and all those stuff. You're going to see some thumbs up, but you're going to see some thumbs down.
Right.
And that's when I realized, when I looked at that, I said, you know what? Even more so, because my mother told me about this many years ago. And it's like, do what makes you happy. And that's what I try to focus on in my life, is I want to do what makes me happy, and that's positive, that's loving and caring, that I can be able to give back to people. Because when I pass away, there will not be a U-Haul behind my hearse.
Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington. That's fire. That's fire.
Straight up with Denzel, yeah.
Yeah.
and that's so true. But you can pass knowledge on to people. And you can give them that wisdom, and you can plant those seeds, and then they can continue. It's like a life, a relay life, and it's like you're passing the baton to one after another, and they're passing the baton, And so we want to create that plague of positivity. That's what I. That's why.
Oh, I like that.
Plague of
I
positivity.
like that. We appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us. So Alan and I each have a question that we like to ask every single guest, and then you will have survived the hyperconscious gauntlet, and we will tell people where they can find you. But first, 2 questions left. So I think that we have a short amount of time on this earth. You have done incredible things through your life thus far, but what is next for Tyree? What does Tyree want to accomplish before he dies?
You there?
I am here. Did you hear that? Any of what
Nope,
I just
I
said?
didn't.
Okay.
No, just repeat that.
Sure. So I think that we are given this time on earth here, and you have done so very much with your time, from being a world-class athlete to playing in the NFL to doing all these things, speaking and training so many people. What do you hope to accomplish with the next part of your life? What do you want to accomplish before you die?
I want to be able to give. I've talked about this before. I want to give more people hope. I want to give people hope that whatever you are going through in your life, whatever challenges, whatever adversity, whatever doubts you may have, is that they can read my book, they can listen to my story, and they're like, if that knucklehead little boy from Riverside, California made it, I definitely can make it. and that's what I want people to take, because I've been through a lot in my life, and I talk deeply about it in my autobiography, but I love inspiring people, man. I love seeing their face, and I love seeing them like light up when they feel like they're in a dark place. There's nowhere to go. They're in a fetal position, and they just feel like death is knocking at their door. And then I come in, and I share my story with them, and it's like the light bulb goes off, and like the light flashes on them, and they just like, man, you know what? I'm revived now, Ty, and I can keep pushing forward. Because the thing is that it's not about sprinting. It's not about like wherever you're going through in life, if you get knocked down, you get back up and you start sprinting. It's about you just taking those baby steps, and then you start walking, and you start jogging, and then you start sprinting. I mean, and there's steps to it. And I think as people, we got to stop comparing ourselves to everybody else, because everybody else has a different walk in their life. Right. I tell my kids all the time that, you may never be a world champion. You may never do anything athletically, athletically from what I did. But I just want you to be happy with what you're doing. And my mother she didn't have fancy, she didn't have no degrees, and she didn't do anything fancy. She's from Natchitoches, Louisiana, but she would always ask me, she said, "Hey, are you happy?" And I would say, "Yes, I'm happy, Mom." And then there's many times I told her I wasn't happy, and she would say, "Go get happy."
Mama knows.
She would say, "Go get." Mama knows. And so I'm gonna give you a little sneak preview. My next book, I'm actually going to title it "Go Get Happy." That's what I'm gonna write next.
Cool. That sounds like a name of a fire podcast too. Just saying.
Oh, planting seeds, giving hope. I love it. So I have my last question that I like to ask everybody. So I wear a chain around my neck with the North Star on it. And to me, it's the brightest star in the sky. It's unwavering, it's constant, and it's a guide. And when we're in deep emotional pain, oftentimes we're going to see a true north that we wouldn't see otherwise, some sort of breakthrough or distinction. So we grow, we evolve, we change, we adapt. You've obviously done a ton of that to become the man you are today, but I believe there's something about us that never changes. What about you, Tyree, never changed?
I've always been Tyree. I've always been the same person. Of course, I've matured and have a lot of wisdom and knowledge, whatnot. But I'm always a happy-go-lucky. I'm shy in a lot of ways. It's kind of, I can be reserved but I'm still like that little boy. When I think back, that was playing pop water football and just trying to make it to the top. And that's what I always envision myself now as a grown man, and just always smiling. My nickname used to be Smiley because I was always smiling. I was always smiling at everything, and I don't give up. I keep pressing forward. That's always been Tyree. I just keep pressing and pressing until I get what I want, and that's just me.
Amen. Strong work.
You had us smiling the whole interview. This was absolute fire. So I want to make sure that obviously you have a book coming out. Where can people find you online? Where can they hire you to speak? When is that book coming out, and where will they be able to get it? Plug away, my friend.
So the title of my book is called "They Told Me No," and then the tagline is "I turn no into yes, and yes into success." And I just talk about all the adversity that I've gone through in my life, all the challenges. And if you want, you can go to my website at www.tyreeswashington.com. you want to hire me as a speaker, and I guarantee you like that my message will be very powerful. It'll be empowering and motivating, just for any audience. It doesn't really matter if you're an athlete. It doesn't matter if you work for a major corporation. I think like I said earlier, that we all go through adversity. We're always trying to overcome something, and I love talking about leadership and talking about John Wooden, because he's one of the greatest collegiate basketball coaches ever. And I talk a lot about him because I think there's a thing I talk about with the socks, which is crazy, and how he made his players. He told his players they're going to spend an hour learning how to put on their socks, and to me that was just part of it. Just a great leader, and just how he just swept his own basketball floors and just humble.
11 championships in a row, right? Crazy.
11.
Let's go.
Yeah, I think
Fall in love with small, and big will be attracted to you. Sorry to interrupt you. My bad. Keep plugging.
Yeah,
My bad.
I love it. No, keep plugging.
John Wooden. I love John Wooden. Yeah. His TED Talk is so good, man.
It's crazy, huh?
Oh, it's so good. He's like, how old is he in that? Like 85 or something? Like,
yeah, I think he was like 80, late 80s, somewhere.
Just giving a TED Talk. So good, so good.
But so you can find me on Instagram at the real Tyree Washington, Tyree S. Washington, and that's it. I mean, I always say this. I always give this quote because my coach gave me this quote many years ago when I was at the tail end of my career, and I wasn't doing as well, and so there was a lot of people within the track community. It was like, hey, Tyree's time is up, and he needs to just take his walking papers and be on his way. And my coach said, destiny can be delayed but not denied. And what that means is that we all have a destiny. But in our life, we will encounter people, and there will be things that will try to slow us up from reaching that destiny. Oh, yeah. But they will never be able to stop us from getting to our destiny. And that's something that I live by now. And whenever I speak, I talk about it, because I mean, like, those roadblocks they're gonna happen. I mean, it's like life is not a straight smooth paved road. I mean, there's so many different terrains to it, but just keep pressing forward, and you'll get to where you want to be.
Tyree, Kevin and I have already set the intention to host 6 live events next year. We're co-hosting one January 25th with 200 people in the room, 8 speakers. We have most of those speaker slots filled already, but we're going to set the intention to have you on one of our stages next year.
And race. We can do like a quick race, quick 400.
Yeah, we'll do a quick 400.
Lace them up.
Yeah, I actually run a 35. I don't know if you know that. So
I got to spot you guys, right? That's what I got to spot you guys.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm going to need 398 meters a lead to start. You can see if you can catch up. Tyree, this has been a genuine pleasure, my friend. I appreciate you sharing your story with us. And yeah, like Alan said, the intention is definitely set. I want to make sure that we are able to meet you at some point in person. And
yes,
you are an ally in the mission. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help you with your book and with your speaking and all of that stuff. We want to help in any way we can, my friend.
Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate the invitation to speak at your event. I would love to. I mean, I think it'll be great, and I look forward to meeting you guys. I don't know if you guys play golf. Do you play golf at all?
Yeah, not well though.
Yeah, not well. Not often enough. Although my lady does, so I'm going to start a little more.
well, I'm not that great. I'm not as bad as Barkley, but I'm pretty good. No offense, Charles, but
yeah, right.
We'll take you up on that for sure. We'll get on the course.
And we'll have to, I want a signed copy of your book at some point, too. I know I'm asking so much of you. But anyways, yes, very excited. No. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help you. We love to help perpetuate the message of guests that we believe in, and it's obvious that we believe in you. So this is great.
Thank you very much. Well, you guys have a blessed day and a happy holidays to you and your family.
You as well. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Tyree Washington.
Talk soon.